Hey everybody, this is Doug with Artfully Rogue, and I'm going to show you how to bend sheet metal if you don't have a sheet metal brake. Now, if you don't know what a sheet metal brake is, it's a tool or big machine that actually bends sheet metal so that you have an angle on it. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 90 degree, it can be a 30 or 45 or whatever, but it puts a bend in sheet metal. Now, this is an inexpensive combination brake, roller, and shear from Harbor Freight. Now, it's good with bending up to 20 gauge sheet steel. All right, this is what a brake does. And it puts a bend in that 20 gauge sheet steel. Now, if I had to use 16 gauge, this machine would actually have a really hard time in bending. Just because it doesn't have the power to do it. So now this is a much bigger sheet metal brake, and this won't have any problems doing the 16 gauge sheet steel that is stainless. Might get loud. So not everybody's gonna have a big machine in here to be able to break or bend bigger sheet metal. And if you do have a smaller brake in your shop, you're not going to be able to bend the thicker metal that you might need to. So I'm going to show you how I used to bend sheet metal before I had either one of these sheet metal brakes. So I've got a piece of 16 gauge stainless. It's actually clamped to my workbench. And I have a piece of 2" by 1" square tubing. Now, it doesn't matter what size tubing you use, but you need a flat edge that you can press down on top of that sheet metal. I use clamps like C-clamps because it can really bite in there nice and hard. You don't want this to move at all. Next, you want to take a piece of flat bar or angle, and you want to lay that right across the top of where you want that bend to be. Now, these are extremely handy because these are sheet metal bending vice grips. Get as deep as a grip that you can on here, and the more you can use, the better. All right, now you've clipped your flat piece here on top of your steel. You've got this clamp down, and now you want to just bend that steel. Now, the difference between this bend and, say, something on a brake is that your bend is going to be a lot more rounded edged than, say, if it done on a machine. And I'll show you the difference here in just 1 second. So now, can you see how that's a really rounded edge? Compared to, now this is what was done on the machine, so you can see that the corner is a little tighter than what you could do by hand. But still possible to create a 90 without a brake. Now I'm going to show you a quick way that you can ensure that you have a little bit less of a rounded corner. So in order to get a sharper corner, mark where you want to make that bend, and then take an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. Score yourself a line, then set yourself up exactly the same way you did before. Right on the edge of your table. Use your clamps. Now I try to put them right on the edge, especially like something this small. That way they don't interfere with the sheet metal vice grips when you make your bend. Clamp these down as tight as possible. Same thing. And then make your bend. Now by scoring the steel, you give your steel a weak point so it actually has a place to focus that bend. And as you can see, that has now created a much sharper bend than what we did without that score line. So there's a couple different ways that you can actually bend steel without having a sheet metal break. Just make sure that you clamp the top of your steel and then also put another piece of steel across the area that you want to bend, and then use some vice grips. Specifically, I used the sheet metal vice grips. Now I'll put a link in the description to where you can get these, but these are great if you need to bend sheet metal right there in your shop. Okay, I know this was a short video, but I hope this tip helps you in your shop, so when you need to bend sheet metal, you can do so with confidence. Now, my hydraulic sheet metal brake is great. So is my little Harbor Freight sheet metal brake. It's also great. But I use the method I just showed you to make things like this. It's a small tray. Now, I can't do these types of bends on this big beast, and the little guy isn't strong enough to do it. So I can make this tray right here on my workbench by using the methods that I just showed you here. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. It is greatly appreciated. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so now. And if you have a tip that you would like to leave in the comments, please do so. We'll see you in the next video.